Welcome to our channel, Come Draw With Us. Today I'm going to be walking you through the steps of using Procreate to finish our drawing of Scooby Doo. I created an earlier version of how to actually draw him. The link to that video is in the description. So in this video, we're just going to be working on using Procreate to color, shade, and highlight. But if you don't want to draw Scooby from scratch and would just rather work on using Procreate, I'll also include a link to my sketch of Scooby Doo. Feel free to use that and just upload it to your Procreate. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is draw an outline of Scooby Doo. So take your original outline layer, change the blend mode to multiply, and reduce the opacity to about 20%, just something so it doesn't distract you. Create a new layer and move it underneath the outline. Then using the dark brown from the color palette, just go ahead and trace all around Scooby Doo. The second step is going to be to fill in his body color. So you're going to want to go to your layers, change your new brown outline to a reference, add a new layer and move it below, and then select the medium brown and go ahead and just color drop into the body and the ears. Now we need to add the base of the collar. So go ahead and add a new layer, change your color to the medium blue, and then trace the collar and fill it in. Once it's filled in, you can see that the brown outline is showing. That's because it's above the collar layer. So just go to your outline layer and erase those lines that's over the collar. Okay, now we get to add the layer for the black parts. So go to your layers and click a new layer, and it should be above the brown outline. And then select black and go ahead and trace your eyebrows and the nose and the whiskers. Now add a new layer and make sure it's below the brown outline, and still using black, go ahead and draw in the spots and also his mouth. Now let's add the pink color. add a new layer still underneath the brown outline, and go ahead and select that middle pink and fill in the ears and the tongue. The next step is to add the dog collar. So go ahead and add a new layer and make sure it's above the brown outline, and select the medium yellow and go ahead and trace the color of the shape of the dog tag and fill it in with the yellow. And the last step for all of the base colors is to add the whites of the eyes. So above the yellow layer, go ahead and add a new one, and then choose white, and then just go ahead and draw in the whites of the eyes and fill them in. And if you're not happy with the shape, you can always click on Edit Shape and then just move it around until you're happy with it, and then drag in the color. For the pupils of the eyes, add a new layer above the white, make it a clipping mask, and then use black and go ahead and draw the circles. So that's all there is to creating the base color. Now we get to add the highlights and the shadows. We'll start with the blue collar. So go ahead and select that layer, add a new one, make it a clipping mask, and then you're going to select the dark blue color and go ahead and draw an outline all the way around the collar, just like there's a brown outline around the dog. And up until now, I've been using a pencil brush from BeeJayDel. I really enjoy using this pencil, so I'll go ahead and include a link in my description down below, but you can use any pen in Procreate. And then when it comes to adding the highlights, we're going to be using the soft brush, and that's also standard in Procreate. Once that's done, let's go ahead and add some highlight. So you're going to go back to your blue layer, add a new one, and it defaults as a clipping mask. Go ahead and select the light blue color, and using the Procreate soft brush, go ahead and draw a line along the whole top of the collar, and then we're going to go ahead and blur that out, and I'll explain that in just a few seconds. To soften the highlight up a bit, we're going to blur it out. So click on Adjustments and then Gaussian Blur, and then slide your pencil across the screen until you get the blur of about 3%. Then now we're going to add some shadows. So go back to the blue collar layer, click on a new layer, and then click the dark blue, and go ahead and increase the size of your soft brush and shade in the bottom part of the collar as you see me do it in the video. One last step for this collar is to add a few more highlights. So on the layer you're on, click on a new layer, and then select the light blue, and still using the soft brush, go ahead and just highlight kind of the middle portion of the collar as you see me do in the video. After a while, we have a lot of layers going on, so we want to try and keep organized, so I'm going to group them together. So just select all of your collar layers, click on group, and then go ahead and rename it to collar. This will just help us stay organized. So now let's add detail to the yellow dog tag. So create a new layer above it, and then go ahead and select the medium blue. And going back to your pen brush, just draw a blue square in the middle of the yellow one. Once the blue square has been filled in, let's add some detail to the yellow tag. Click a new layer above the yellow and make it a clipping mask, and then select the brightest yellow, and using your soft brush, add the highlights as you see me do on the video. On the left sides of the dog tag, you want to add the highlight to the outside edges. And then on the right side, we're going to put the highlight on the inside edges. Now we just want to highlight the ring, so you can increase the size of your brush, and just with light pressure, go ahead and add some highlight around the outsides on the left-hand side. Once those highlights are in, we're going to go ahead and soften it up by using the Gaussian blur. So click on Adjustments, then Gaussian blur, and then drag your pencil until it says about 3%. Then we'll add some of the shading, so click on the yellow tag, click a new layer, and that should default to a clipping mask. And then select the dark yellow, and then just go ahead and shade on the opposite sides of where you put the highlight. Then once again, to soften this up, click on Adjustments, click on Gaussian Blur, and go ahead and blur until about 3%. For this next part, you're going to want to turn the outline back on. We're going to draw the SD, so go to the blue layer, add a new one. Don't make this a clipping mask. And then using the middle yellow, the medium yellow, go ahead and trace SD, and then fill it in with the yellow. So we're going to add highlights and shading to the SD and the blue square. So first, click on the layer with the SD, and you can take off the outline. But then add a new layer above the SD, make it a clipping mask, and then add shading and highlights the same way we did. So using the soft brush, go ahead and highlight on the left-hand sides and add shading to the right-hand sides. For the shadows, add a new layer underneath the highlights. so that it's a clipping mask. And using the dark yellow, go ahead and add shadow to the right hand sides and the bottom sides. Now for the blue square, click on that layer, add a new one, and make it a clipping mask. Then go ahead and select your dark blue, and then add some shading to the right sides of the blue square. Follow that up by adding some highlights to the left sides. To help keep our layers organized, let's go ahead and just select all of the yellow and blue layers, group them together. I just named it SD card, and then let's go ahead and add detail to the whites of the eyes. So click on the white layer, and then add a new one, and make it a clipping mask, and then select the light blue, and using the soft brush, go ahead and trace around the outsides of the eyes. You just want to soften that up with the Gaussian blur, so click on Adjustments, Gaussian blur, and then drag until it's blurred out. In this video I went to about 5%. Then go to that layer and reduce the opacity to about 50%. And then the last step for the eyes is just to add the white highlight. So add a new layer above the black pupils, make it a clipping mask, and then just using the soft brush with white, go ahead and add 2 dots. Let's keep the layers organized and just group all of the eye layers together. So select them all and just rename it to eyes. The next step for Scooby Doo is to add some highlights and shading to the pink parts. So click on the pink layer, add a new one, make it a clipping mask, and then go ahead and select the light pink, and using the soft brush, add highlights in the same areas you see me do in the video. For the shading on the pink, we're going to do it a bit differently. We're going to go ahead and add a new layer and make it a clipping mask, and then change the blend mode to color burn and select a medium gray. And this will simply darken up the pink, and go ahead and add the darker color to the areas that I do in the video. Now let's add the highlight to the nose and the eyebrows. So click on the black layer, add a new one. You can make it a clipping mask, you don't have to though. And using your soft brush and white, go ahead and add highlights to the eyebrows like I do. And for the highlight on the nose, you want to use a pen brush. So change from the soft brush to just a pen liner. And we're going to draw an oval and then fill that in. And then we'll just erase away some parts of it. When you erase it away, you want to erase with the soft brush so it gives a soft blend. And then going back to your soft brush, add another small highlight at the bottom of the nose. Again, let's just clean up the layers a little bit. So go ahead and group the black nose layer with the white highlight. You can rename that one. And also go ahead and combine all of the pink layers and just rename that to pink. It just makes it easier to see which layers you're working with. Okay, so let's move on to the highlights and shading on the body. So click on the body layer, add a new one, make it a clipping mask, and then select the lightest brown. You're going to use your pen brush to go ahead and add highlights all around the shape of Scooby Doo. So go ahead and just follow the same areas that I do the lines in my videos. Now we just want to soften up the highlight by doing the Gaussian blur. So click on Adjustments and then Gaussian blur and drag your pen across the screen until it's about 3%. Now we're going to add some softer highlights. Go ahead and add a new layer and make it a clipping mask. And then using the lightest brown and using the soft brush, go ahead and add highlights in the same areas that I do. The next thing we want to do is add some shading to Scooby. So go ahead and add a new layer and change the blend mode to color burn, and then select a medium gray, and using your soft brush, go ahead and add some shading to the same areas that you see me do in this video. When you're done adding your shading, just soften it up by using the Gaussian blur. So click on Adjustments, then click on Gaussian blur, and then slide your pencil across the screen until it's about 3%. Then just the very last thing we have to do is to add some freckles. So go ahead and add a layer at the very top, and using a pen brush, go ahead and just add a few freckles, and then you are done. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and found it easy enough to follow along. Thanks so much for watching.